Welcome back to the Fighters Corner podcast for another podcast episode. In today's episode, we had the pleasure and the privilege of not only having Miguel Iturrate sit in on with us, but also Jonah Williams as well. And we recapped the UFC Fight Night that took place in China over the weekend that headlined with the awesome 42-second victory of Zhang Weili over the great Jessica Andrade. We break down what else took place on that card, plus much more that's on the horizon with the UFC and MMA. Please like, subscribe, and share, and enjoy the show. So who are you taking in this weekend's fights? I know who I got, and it's not who you think. So I'm going to take my picks over to the world's safest and most trusted online gambling site and make a few bets. That's right, it's BetDSI.com. With more than 20 years' experience in the online gaming industry, BetDSI has the best sign-up and deposit promotions on the web. They also boast more deposit options than any other betting site, including fast, free, and secure payouts. Also, for our listeners, they are offering a special promotion where you can build a bigger bankroll and get 100% sports cash bonus when using our promo code Fighters Corner, all one word. That's 50% more sports cash by using our promo code Fighters Corner. Check out BetDSI for all your online gaming needs.
This episode is sponsored by B2 Digital. B2 Digital is doing some really cool things in the mixed martial art world. They're kind of creating a farm league for the bigger shows, and they are listed on a publicly traded company, listed on the stock exchange, BTDG on the stock exchange. They support our show. Guys, please, if you guys like this show, please give them a look, and if you can throw some support their way, man, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Also, please don't forget to subscribe, hit like, share, all because you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Radio Player, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, and the guy sitting next to you on the train is probably listening to us too. And if you can, show us your support by finding us on Patreon, where you can let us know how much you love us. And if you're a fan of boxing, jiu-jitsu, kumite, and even capoeira, go check out my guys at UCL MMA. These guys are the heavyweight champions of mixed martial arts shows. And if you think you're the next Johnny Lawrence, go to their website at UCLMMA.com, shoot them an email and tell them John sent you before asking their matchmaker that you want to defend your All-Valley Karate Championship versus one of their fighters. That's UCLMMA.com.
Welcome back to the Fighters Corner podcast. John Gorosky, Jonah Williams, with us on the phone. Guess who it is?
The Immortal.
The one and the only, Miguel Iturrate. I am 90% sure I'm saying your last name wrong. I apologize. But you're still my man.
Iturates. The Chicago version is Iturates.
Iturates.
Miguel, we're talking about MMA. And when we usually talk about MMA, it's generally 95% the UFC. However, Jonah does
What's the
have
other 5%? USADA?
That's UFC related.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. You know, I think it might get brought up again today. Yeah, and it's not shoehorned. That's the weird thing. Miguel, what did you think of the UFC China card?
I think, there are times where, the UFC rolls the dice and it goes through for them. And this is one of those examples here, I think, their business model and everything, benefits from having a champion in China. I think, obviously the size of the market and things like that. And everybody over there, is it going to be any doubt that, Chinese folks in China are going to root for the Chinese fighters? So, I think in terms of them and their business model, that's really all they care about. I think it came up all aces for them.
Okay. And definitely they wanted to get really established in China before ONE FC runs away with that market, which they were kind of at risk of having have happen.
Well, that's
I think they're going to need more than this for that competition. I think that ONE FC has been around now for a few years and things like that. And I think if that's going to be a real fight, it'll develop over the next 5 or 10 years. It won't be this wave of fighters. It'll be who develops the next wave of fighters that really grabs the market, I think.
Well, so there's three things about this fight that really stood out. One is that they made sure to tell us.
First off, which is this fight?
Well, this card, the whole Beijing China card.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, Shenzhen, China card. One is they made a point to show us the quality of the UFC training center they built in China. They built a huge center. It's bigger than the one in Vegas. It's more comprehensive than the one in Vegas. It's probably mostly made out of lead, so I don't know about training there. But so they are the UFC being they are developing their own fighters in China, and they're developing fighters that are already they're already coming out of China. So they're definitely developing there. So two, they made a point to let us know that the judges were not Chinese. The broadcasters mentioned that several times that the judges actually came from New Zealand and somewhere else.
Well, I mean, let's call it what it is. Whenever you go to a foreign country like that, in essence, what you're doing is you're creating a hometown advantage. And anytime you got to fly 20-plus hours to get somewhere, I don't care how good you are, you lose about 20% of who you are, and it takes you're a little sluggish before you get there.
And at the end of the day, if you're going over there to fight, I would...
You're going as a B-side.
Yeah.
Let's not try to... mask that at all. I think it's a little. Essentially, let's look at the main event, if you don't mind. All right, so we're looking at Zhang Weili and Jessica Andrade. Do you know where Jessica Andrade is from?
Brazil.
Okay. Have you seen the way she looks?
Jacked.
Okay. Yoked, I think is the term that they use, right? Okay, so you've got a person from a country that is known for state sponsorship doping in regards to the Olympics. And now you got her against somebody with an USADA program that's clearly compromised.
So pretty much this event in my mind looked like USADA China versus USADA Brazil. And USADA China ran off with it because they
ran up in them.
On the undercard, there were three bouts featuring Chinese fighters. They went 3-0 on the undercard. They went 2-1 on the main card. And all of these guys and girls, jacked and shredded coming out of China. Man, they were big and strong. Even the one Chinese fighter who lost, everybody, really, really big, really strong. Maybe not a coincidence?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it's like I have absolutely zero faith in Brazil. I mean, obviously, we could do an entire 20-minute video on my points, and I'd be willing to argue with anybody that wants to. With I think I'd have a pretty high success rate in conveying my thoughts on it. But now you got a country that has literally a state-sponsored doping program. That they have their best scientists on board in order to try to defeat the most modern tests, and those secrets don't leave there. Like here, people tend to share. Oh yeah, you can hire over. They're not sharing any of their secrets.
And that's the big thing about training at the training center, in the UFC training center in Vegas, is that Vegas has ears. Everybody knows everybody, and if you're training at 6 o'clock in a gym where your opponent's training at 7 o'clock, maybe the guy with the janitor, he probably fought when he was in his 20s, and he probably knows a guy that knows somebody. In China, these Chinese fighters don't seem to be fighting each other ever in the UFC. So it seems like
it's like a different type of
And that was one thing. The UFC really had a lot of faith in these Chinese fighters, because you notice the Cinco de Mayo thing where both fighters have to be Mexican, so a Mexican never gets robbed.
or at least one got Mexican on the card. Yeah. So here they believed, because imagine if all of those Chinese fighters would have lost, the place would have got burned to the ground. They knew it wasn't going to happen. They knew these guys were really. There's an interesting difference in crowd too. Like in Japan, the crowd's eerily silent, and there was a lot of silence there as well. Like the cornermen were just really loud, and it's because there was no white noise.
Yeah,
they're yelling as if there's white noise there, and it's not. They could have had a normal conversation, and the guy could have heard the commands. One of the things on the card that that really kind of was a highlight for myself was the flyweight division, that Kai Kara France versus Mark De La Rosa. This Mark De La Rosa who lost, it was a unanimous decision. It was 30-27 on two judges' cards. This Mark De La Rosa is as tough as nails.
Dude, they're so good. And all the flyweights, they're not just fighting to win, they're fighting to keep their whole division in the UFC. I think these guys know that the division has to produce, and they're going out and they're showing it, and they're really
this France guy. Mark De La Rosa's head is just like Homer Simpson's. I couldn't believe the abuse he took.
Oh my God!
He kept getting up and getting up and getting up, and man, I think if Demetrius Johnson was still in the weight class, I seriously think he'd be having issues right now.
Yeah.
You know, but this Kai Kara France, I was incredibly impressed by him. Like, I can't say enough good things about him. Yeah. Miguel, what did you take away from the card?
You know, like I said, I think it's a cultural watermark for the UFC. The UFC may actually be getting ahead of themselves here. I do think that the issues brought up around drug testing and things like that will rear their ugly heads with Asian fighters at some point or another. At some point, you know, those guys may have to come to the United States and fight, and then we'll see if that issue becomes more aggravated. To the point, though, I think, you know, at some point, you know, it may be a few years down the line and stuff, but at some point, you may see UFC China cards with all Chinese athletes. So I don't think it's that much of a big deal that they could only fill up, you know, 3 or 4 spots on this card with Chinese athletes, especially, you know, they wanted to highlight the ones that are coming along and that are further along the learning curve. So you get 3 or 4 right now. That'll change. That'll change fast. And like I said, that's the fastest place that you're going to see UFC's China's going on with, you know, maybe the broadcast all in Chinese and everything over there, and you know, starting times for them and all kinds of stuff. And, you know, it'll be the point where UFC fans will no longer be able to see every UFC fight, you know?
Well, if they're going to make an impact in China, they're going to have to be there more than, you know, a few times a year. They're going to have to be there probably 7, 8 times a year. I mean, that market warrants it, and it's that big. And, you know, on the future horizon, you know, for the UFC, we got the Abu Dhabi card coming up.
That's looking real good. The more I look at that card, the more it looks real good.
Yeah. No, for sure. Miguel, what are the odds for Khabib versus Poirier?
Khabib right now is about a 4-1 favorite. He's a minus 440.
You know, it's crazy. If you really look at Dustin Poirier's resume and you compare it to Khabib's resume, it's not even close in regards to talent that they have fought and beat. I mean, Dustin Poirier is legit. Oh, yeah. But it's solving that wrestling puzzle, you know? It's like that matrix, that wrestling matrix that Khabib is.
Is he capable of doing it?
Is the issue with Khabib isn't just that he's better than everybody. It's that he's different than everybody. Like, how do you train for something that's different?
Okay, well, if you're going to train for somebody that's different than everybody and you had to pick one camp to do it in, I'm going to go with Mike Brown in the ATT, and that's where Poirier's living at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, he's literally living with Mike Brown. So, I mean, it's the smart move, in my opinion. Pretty much the only move, in my opinion, especially with guys around his weight class. But, you know, he's beat Max Holloway twice, the only guy ever to finish him.
Yeah.
Like, I respect him, man. Like, it's a legit main event. It's a legit main event where he's a 4-1 favorite on paper. It looks a little lopsided.
Yeah. I would say. I would say Khabib's definitely a favorite, but 4-1 sounds a little off. Like,
no one's really challenged Khabib yet, except in the later rounds. L.I. Quinta in the later rounds. I think it won round 5 or 4. The only time Khabib ever loses rounds is later on in a fight.
Yeah,
you know, and Ken Poirier, who's not from a real strong wrestling background, guy dropped out of high school in 9th grade. You know, and so which eliminates his wrestling. So,
and then, I hate to keep bringing this back up, but we're going to a third world country where Khabib is a megastar in the Muslim world.
Khabib's training in California, so usually he's training with Cormier.
Wow.
Yeah, he's over him, AKA. So,
and that's one of those things when
you would think he would probably keep his training camp home.
The old expression, "Dance with the one that brought you." You know, this style brought you to the dance. It seems like maybe you shouldn't run over.
He's been with AKA for a while.
Yeah,
he's been with AKA for a while. But like the whole time zone and difference, and the environment, the biology.
Yeah.
You'd figured he'd stay over on that side of the world, you know, rather than coming over here for his training camp. But yeah, he's in California for his training camp again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is.
Interesting. It is. And you know who else is on that undercard that I really like too is Curtis Blades, local guy. He's fighting Shamil Aber. Oh my God, I can't even. It's got about 25. I think in the 6th grade, this guy learned how to spell his last name. Curtis Blades has got 2 losses, both of which are to Ngannou.
Ngannou, yep.
He's 25 years old. Daniel Cormier's gone on record stating he's doing the things that are needed in order to become a world champion. Hey, don't count Curtis Blades out yet. They threw him a wolf twice.
Oh, yeah,
you can't count him out yet.
Yeah. I mean, you can't because the heavyweight division right now is real shallow. So
they got to keep him relevant.
They do, and this fight does help.
And bringing him along would be smart.
Yeah, it's so tough in the UFC because you have to get good before you get to the UFC because every fight they throw you is going to be a monster. Like there's no more.
Yeah, there's levels. Yeah.
There's
no
more
that next level.
Bringing along. And right now, if you're entering the heavyweight division, you're entering the heavyweight division where it's pretty much just the top end guys, and then the new guy that comes in to fight these guys. It's a tough division to walk into.
Yeah, Miguel, what is your overall opinion on Blades?
Just that, that it's a light division, so he's next up. In terms of guys that you want to see come along, I think he still has quite a ways to go before I would consider him a threat to Ngannou or Cormier or Stipe at this point. But
he's young
and he bangs, so he's going to get his shot.
Yeah, and then the co-main event on that is Edson Barboza versus Paul Felder, and Felder is so good at color commentary. I'm to the point right now. I'm like, man, why is this guy even risking it?
Yeah, dude, he has a real personality. Man.
Yeah, and if you look at like Barboza's last few fights, I think he's made somebody mad at the UFC.
Yeah, he's pissed someone off.
I mean, they're trying to get him killed.
Yeah, he's been getting some dogs.
Yeah, they're trying to get him killed. Miguel, is there anything else on that card that interests you?
No, I mean, it's going to be from Abu Dhabi, so it's another weekend that you want to check your local listings. It'll be going on Saturday in the afternoon or late morning even.
1 o'clock.
Is it 1 o'clock here in Chicago, Central Standard Time? 1 o'clock? Yeah. I don't think I mind that, to be honest.
I was going to say, I really like that. I'm I'm an early to bed, early to rise kind of dude by force. But I like those earlier cards when they're running until
that's
midnight.
That's a huge time difference, though, if you're stepping into that cage.
Dude, that's a nightmare to fight. Because, as a spectator, I like watching something at 1 in the afternoon. As an athlete, most athletes kind of peak around 6 to 7 p.m. in the time zone that they've lived and trained in. When you flip it like that, because these guys are fighting at 12 noon, the time that their body is set to. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
And how much time do you want to hang out in Abu Dhabi before the fight? Do you want to come early and get used to the time?
I think people are already gone. I've seen people on social media posting it.
Curtis Blades left a couple days ago, which is
Yeah.
smart. It's going to take about 4 days to adjust.
100%. The big thing is,
and there's not a lot of nightlife out there. I mean, in terms of distractions, Abu Dhabi doesn't have it.
And the nightlife there is, you have to be a billionaire to participate.
Miguel, would you agree that the nightlife in Abu Dhabi is more like hotel lobby type nightlife?
It depends. Not really. I mean, they're about as liberal as you're going to find in the Arab world, and Abu Dhabi has a lot of Western hotels, and all the Western hotels will come with bars and stuff.
Okay, so
if that's what you're looking for,
I think that's what I was referring to when I said in terms of
restaurants, things like that. They'll have a wide choice of food and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a bad place to spend 10 days. Yeah.
Are you going to find an MMA facility to train at? Are you going to find a cage, a gym?
Oh, they'll probably have them.
Well, yeah, their organization will set you up.
Cater to there. There may even be a UFC. Keep in mind that, at some point, I don't know if it's still the case, but at some point, an Emirati owned 10% of the UFC. So come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case anymore. To be honest, I mean, if they're going back there, there's a reason. You know?
The thing is, if I'm Blades, if I'm anybody who's fighting, like if I'm fighting against Khabib, per se, I probably don't want to train in the gym that the United Arab Emirates set up for me. You know what I mean? Like, but maybe I'm overthinking it.
Yeah, on the last Bellator card, Jonah, was there any? You had mentioned a fight.
Yes. So there was this. Yeah, and actually, I had the name in my phone. Of course, I turned my phone off.
Yeah, so Miguel, on the last Bellator, there was where Matt Mitrione fought Karatanov, which clearly it looked like he quit in that fight, and I don't know, I couldn't imagine getting hammered by Karatanov by any stretch of the imagination either. But there was an 18-year-old kid out of the body shop on there, and
hit an 11-second ankle lock.
He had an 11-second ankle lock submission
From the body shop?
Yeah, he's one of Antonio McKee's kids.
No kidding.
Not one of his kids.
Well,
but like one of his fighters.
Maybe it could be one of his kids.
Yeah.
No, his kid's pretty light. There's no mix there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the big controversy with that was the guy basically dove under an attempted glove touch.
At the beginning of the round.
Yes, at the beginning of the round. So,
well, I mean, how are you going to get an ankle lock in 11 seconds otherwise? I mean, you are.
But the opponent came to touch gloves. I hate that stupid glove touch. So we all do kind of weird things in MMA. One of my weird things is I've frequently had to corner complete strangers, like someone whose coach has a conflicting obligation or just whatever. If the guy sucks, if he can't cover distance, if he's just not a good fighter for whatever reason, I have him go for the glove touch so he can start the fight a glove touch away from his opponent, so he doesn't have to get across the cage without getting killed. It's a big controversy because people are acting like it was bad sportsmanship. Yeah. The stupid glove touch is a part of the game.
Yeah, so he went for the glove touch. And
well, here we go. It's just saying let's give names for it. Aviv Ghazali, he beat Edward? God, these Muravitskili at Bellator 225 in 11 seconds. There you go.
Yeah, and the guy whose name neither of us could say really kind of needed a win because he's been on a rough losing streak.
Well, you got an 18-year-old kid in there. An 18-year-old I consider a kid, and he's being brought along properly.
You literally can't be any younger in professional athletic.
No, he's fighting a 9-7 guy. He's 2-0. I mean, that's a legit test for him. And you got 15 fights. What are you gonna do? Well, he tricked me. He duped me. You've been in there 15 times as a pro.
Yeah. Yeah, and people act like the glove touch is like it's just sportsmanship. It's part of the game. When you go in there to touch the guy's gloves, either consciously or subconsciously, you want to start the fight closer than all the way across the cage. You want to walk across the cage in a manner that's fairly safe.
Or it's a fair start. Or, I mean, let's give the third option for a glove touch. I'm gassing right now. I need to kill time.
Yeah.
I need to catch a breath. In the middle of all of our exchanges, let's just do another glove touch and another glove touch and another glove touch. And when somebody like the opponent is allowing something like that to go on, one, they've been baited. You got the alpha guy that's breathing, huffing and puffing, not wanting to give up his throne, and the opponent who's touching gloves constantly throughout the round is being baited.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're doing it impulsively or compulsively, then you're stupid. Like you shouldn't. Those ticks and twitches that are not consciously a part of your game are flaws and an error. But it's a part of the gamesmanship. Like when you see these guys when they're always starting their fight with a glove touch, it's because glove touch happens to be the same range as their double leg takedown. Like it happens to be the same range as their low leg kick. They want that range. They're playing the game too. So if you sock somebody up who's trying to touch your glove, not the greatest move, but not a total scumbag move either. Because the glove touch is them trying to game you into getting into the position they want you in.
Yeah, am I going to argue with you? You're right.
Yeah, and I've had some fighters that kind of didn't belong in the ring, didn't belong in a cage, that I met the day of the fight, and I was like,
right,
okay,
we're going to be glove touching the entire time.
Well, I had him. Okay, you're going to glove touch. You're going to give him a second, and then you're going to shoot your double. That kind of sucks. That you could never get this guy. And I've had success with fighters who weren't
my
very
advice
good.
would have been completely different. I would have been like, go for the glove touch, and instead give him a super kick.
Yes. yeah.
Reverse wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You're going to look like a superstar, even though you're friggin' awful.
Yeah. So I mean that was a big thing online. Like I don't know. I felt like I had to talk about it because people are acting like the glove toucher is the good sportsman, and the person who's waving off the glove touch is a jerk.
You know, there's some times that I see before a fight, the two guys that are fighting each other will raise hands towards each other. Yeah, and then they'll either give a throat slash no or like a yes nod. Yeah. And then at that point they'll do it. I mean, I think naturally, instinctively, like if there's no communication before that happens, you're going up there raising touch gloves, but. I personally wouldn't do it. I mean, I've seen what Manny Gambarian have done or has done, and I'm like, you know what, man, that's why you don't touch gloves.
Well, I mean, and to change the subject, and obviously we're probably going to wrap it up with this one. One interesting thing that I have seen also is Colby Covington beats Robbie Lawler. Both of them work at American Top Team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Robbie Lawler leaves American Top Team. Dan Lambert, who's the owner of ATT, I can't say enough good things about him. The guy is what he's done for the sport. It's unfortunate that he'll never get the credit he deserves, but that's a first ballot Hall of Famer right there for somebody that hasn't ever stepped into the UFC cage. If you look at the next people that they're kind of floating outside of Usman, is also Jorge Masvidal. That's another American Top Team guy.
Yeah.
It's just... It's getting strange, man.
They should do what they did like back in the old wrestling days, man. You had like NWO white and NWO red. You know what I mean? Start doing like ATT with different colors, man. I mean,
it's a big enough facility with enough people that work out there that you can put them at opposite ends of the building and they'll never even see each other.
Wow.
So it's
in Coconut Creek, right?
Yeah.
Miguel,
what do you think about that? Like 3 of the top guys and they're fighting each other. Like
they all pee in the same urinal.
Is that weird?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it's a case by case basis and a management issue, and it's something that you can't take lightly because it is a case by case issue. You could have guys that just because of their makeup, like I don't really think Khabib or like Eastern European guys will care too much about fighting their teammates, for money for the belt and if the circumstances are right. A lot of Americans might say they want to do it, but then you may still not get 100% of a fight. You know what I mean? They only go 80% or whatever. So it becomes a situation where you have to monitor and be constantly on top of those relationships, throughout the UFC and throughout your roster. You may come down to a situation where they may have to apply some type of limit where only a certain number, 1 or 2 students, per weight class at least, or things like that, in order to avoid these problems. Add to Masvidal and Covington to that logjam the fact that Tyrone Woodley's with Dean Thomas and he's the belt holder prior, right? So, there really is a logjam there. And at the end of the day, it's not good for the competition. It's not good for the UFC to have so many guys who, if you match them up against each other, you may not be sure what you're going to get.
If I'm American Top Team, though, and a guy like Robbie Lawler leaves, like, that hurts.
Yeah, but so you got this situation, like you said, everybody's competing for the same belt in the same weight division.
As an owner. Dan Lambert looks at these people
as an athlete, say you're running a drill or something like that, and somebody accidentally falls on your ankle. Was it an accident? We're in the same weight division. I got the belt. You're trying to... you get all these little tiny things that start to add up as an athlete. It's like, you know what? Maybe I just don't want to be... Maybe I don't even want to park my car next to this guy because he's looking at me like this should be his car. You know what I mean? Like it gets pretty deep.
Those high school shenanigans do take place. I mean, don't let maturity and age and being a professional athlete.
Oh no, absolutely. That's why it takes knowing the guys and knowing them pretty intimately. Because you got to know, like, hey, yeah, when you added this guy to the team, that's an X factor, and he's a bit of a loose cannon, and on top of that, he's in the same weight class as other talent. Maybe, you skip some of those guys and go for others, but, who knows, how the UFC thinks that they manage that, But, like, for example, Covington and Masvidal, probably shouldn't fight in the octagon. I don't think George's makeup is such that, he wouldn't do it. But, Covington's already shown himself to be, a 5-round fighter. And when you have, friends fighting, you don't want a fight going to a decision and leave all those questions and stuff like that. You can only look at that as a promotion.
Well, a couple years ago, I'd say several years ago, there was like a reality TV show that followed like Masvidal and a bunch of the guys from ATT around. And I think the guys from, Masvidal and crew were all really behaving at their best. And those guys are friggin' stone killers. And you couldn't hide the fact that without the UFC, those guys would be doing lengthy prison terms or on some sort of government watch list for mass murder. Because, it's just these guys are they're legit. Like, you can't fake that type. And they've taken certain steps in their lives to stay out of prison and stay off the radar and have done exceptionally well for themselves as a brand, as family members. And, because of mixed martial arts, you can grab about a dozen guys off of that team where you could say it definitely saved their lives. And Masvidal definitely falls into that category.
And then we got Masvidal Diaz coming up. Like, what's the audience going to be like?
I can tell you about that. You got two thugs, definite street cred on both sides. Do you know what's going to happen on that? Mutual respect.
Yeah.
I guarantee there's going to be no pre-fight antics, no shit talk. It's just real talk.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
It's not the your mama type, shenanigans. It's just, I'm the holder of the bad motherfucker belt. No, I got the bad motherfucker belt. That's it.
And the real question is, where do they put that fight? Or have they come up? As I know, they said that fight's already going to happen, but did they give a location?
Dude, that's going to be.
Dude, Diaz fought in Los Angeles.
You either got to go Vegas or California with that one.
And actually, so when Diaz fought in L.A., Top Rank had a boxing match that same day in Anaheim that was empty. Nobody showed.
I remember that.
Everybody was across the street watching the UFC because the Diaz brothers, man, they're megastars.
As a side note, just so my comments aren't taken out of context about what I was saying about those guys, being thugs. Yeah. One of the guys on that reality show was a Cuban bronze medalist, a wrestler known as Alex Vila. He's doing I think 12 or 13 years for like a murder. Oh, and, came from Cuba, drove his car through a fence on the airport so we can do a couple donuts on, the airport runway. Yeah, the guy, Jorge Masvidal was the guy on the show that kind of kept everybody in check.
Oh, jeez.
And you see what type of individual Jorge Masvidal is.
Yeah.
So, and Alex Vila, whatever it is he did. Amazing fighter, an even better wrestler. And, it's unfortunate sometimes, like when you go from like a Cuban type system and you get the opportunity to kind of wild out like a spring break, sometimes you just don't know how to kind of behave yourself, especially when no one here knows me. I can act any way I want and this isn't going to come back to haunt me. Kind of like
my mom's not going to hear about it.
Yeah, kind of like a teenage chick in Cancun. Like, you hate to say it like that, but, is this the real person or is a real person like you are at home? And, unfortunately, Alex couldn't figure that. It didn't appear that he could figure that out. I know he's still appealing his case, but he's going to be sitting for a while, before that all figures itself out. So, Miguel, before we wrap this up, is there any other UFC fights on the horizon that interest you?
Well, let me pull up my little calendar here, and we can go through some of what we got in the immediate future here. Obviously, this big UFC is coming up this next weekend. After that, you've got the UFC 16, 17, and 18 are all adjusted. 16 is headlined by Cerrone versus Gaethje, and I think that's on everyone's radar.
Yeah, you know, Robert Whittaker, too. He's kind of one of those guys that's fragile, but he's an amazing fighter, man. He really is. So, all right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a major. That's UFC 243. That's set for the 5th of October, and that's Whittaker and Adesanya to unite the middleweight belts. And I mean, I got odds for that. Whittaker's at minus 140, Adesanya at plus 120. So that's a much closer fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, Miguel, thanks so much for joining us, man. Fighters Corner podcast. You know, we'll be back again next week.
Yep. Hit like, subscribe, and share. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much for having me. And, hit like, subscribe, and, go back and listen to some of the old podcasts and stuff. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of info out there for you here on the Fighters Corner.
Thanks, Miguel. Take care.
Thanks a lot.